The warm floor of winter. Imagine waking up in the middle of the night in cold Rome, placing your bare feet on the floor, and it is warm and pleasant. The Romans invented the hypocaust, a brilliant underfloor heating system. Slaves stoked furnaces beneath the house, and hot air flowed through spaces under the mosaic floors and inside the walls. The house was wrapped in hidden heat, with no radiators and no noise, just silence and warmth. Dinner while reclining. If you are tired now, you will love this. The Romans did not sit on stiff chairs during meals. In the dining room, the triclinium, they would sprawl out on wide sofas cushioned with pillows, leaning on their left side and eating leisurely with their right hand. The entire concept of the meal was to relax, rest, and let the body sink into the soft cushions while the food came to you. The soothing sound of water. Rome was a city of flowing water. 11 massive aqueducts funneled millions of liters of clear water from the mountains into the city every day. This means that at night, when the noise of the market and carriages died down, what you would hear from every corner was the gentle sound of water flowing in hundreds of fountains and ornamental pools. Natural white noise that lulled the entire city to sleep. Stargazing from the living room in the Pantheon, the famous temple that still stands, there is a round opening in the dome open to the sky called the oculus, the eye. At night, the place was dark and quiet, and the only thing entering was the light of the moon and stars moving slowly across the inner dome. It was like a silent, ancient planetarium, a direct connection between the small human and the infinity of space. A hot bath before bed. The Roman baths were not just a place to get clean, but a place for total relaxation. Imagine dipping into a hot pool, caldarium, at the perfect temperature, surrounded by the fragrant steam of essential oils like lavender and rose. After the dip, they would move to a resting room for a soothing massage. The Romans knew exactly how to prepare the body for deep sleep. The first clear windows before the Romans, windows were just holes in the wall that let in cold and wind. The Romans were the first to use glass for windows in residential homes. This allowed them to look out at the moon or the garden while remaining protected, warm and quiet inside the house. This separation between the stormy outside and the serene inside is an invention that gave us the quiet of the night. The night watchman, while everyone slept, a special unit called the vigiles, patrolled the streets. They were a combination of firefighters and police. Knowing that someone was awake outside, carrying lanterns and patrolling the dark alleys to keep the peace and prevent fires, allowed the citizens of Rome to close their eyes with a sense of security and tranquility. The dog guarding dreams. The Romans also had beloved pets that slept at the foot of the bed. Ancient mosaics found in Pompeii show drawings of dogs with the inscription Cave Canem, beware of the dog. But touching graves of dogs have also been found with inscriptions like, to my dog, who slept with me and always protected me. The heartwarming love for pets is just as ancient as we are. The god Somnus. The Romans had a special god for sleep called Somnus, hence the word insomnia. Legend has it that he lived in a quiet, dark cave where the sun never shone, and a river of forgetfulness flowed silently within it to quiet the thoughts. His role was to sprinkle the juice of poppy flowers on people's eyelids to grant them rest from the worries of the day. The North Star that wasn't there. If you looked at the sky in ancient Rome 2,000 years ago, the stars would have looked a bit different due to the shifting of the Earth's axis. They didn't have the North Star, Polaris, in the exact spot we see today to navigate by. And yet, they knew how to find their way in absolute darkness, to trust the universe, and to arrive home safely. The protective wind chimes the Romans had tintinnabulum, bronze wind chimes they hung in doorways and gardens. They believed that the delicate, metallic sound produced by every light breeze warded off evil spirits and brought good luck. Imagine falling asleep to the gentle, random tinkling of small bells ringing in the cool night breeze. The art of leisure, odium. The Romans had a beautiful concept called odium. Unlike today, where doing nothing is considered laziness, the Romans saw it as quality time sacred to the soul. It was time dedicated to thought, writing poetry, quiet conversation, or simply staring at nature. Sleep was part of this duty to nurture the spirit, far from the noise of business and politics. The dancing flame without electricity. The Roman night was illuminated by small clay oil lamps, lucerna. The light they cast was not harsh and steady like a bulb, but soft, orange, and flickering. The shadows in the room would dance gently on the painted walls, creating a hypnotic and sleep-inducing atmosphere, a bit like staring at a dying campfire before falling asleep. The secret garden in the heart of the home. Wealthy Roman houses were built facing inward. There were no windows facing the noisy street. Instead, everything faced the peristylium, an open-air inner courtyard with a small garden. At night, the scent of herbs, rosemary, and jasmine would be trapped between the four walls, rising up to the bedrooms. It was an island of nature and silence within the city, protected on all sides. The gates of dreams. The Roman poet Virgil wrote of an ancient belief that there are two gates through which dreams exit at night: the gate of horn and the gate of ivory. True dreams and prophecies pass through the gate of horn, while false dreams and illusions pass through the gate of ivory. This mystical thought accompanied the Romans as they went to sleep, wondering through which gate their night would pass. Pillows of rose petals. We are used to feathers or foam, but the Romans loved to bring nature into bed. Sometimes they filled their pillows or mattresses not just with soft wool, but also with dried rose petals or other aromatic herbs. When laying your head down, a gentle, natural scent is released, helping to calm the nervous system and sink into sleep. The glowing Milky Way without the light pollution of street lamps and cars. Rome's night sky was a spectacular show. The Romans called our galaxy Via Lactea, the Milky Way, and they could see it clearly on every bright night, stretching from end to end like a river of light. Looking up was not looking at darkness, but at infinite twinkling points that provided proportion and peace. Library by candlelight. In great libraries or study rooms, scrolls were kept in special cylinders scented with cedar wood to repel insects. Reading at night was a slow and quiet ritual. Unrolling the scroll, the smell of the papyrus, and the need to bring the candle close to the script. It was a slow, meditative process, the complete opposite of quickly scrolling through a feed on a phone. Siesta by custom. Sleep was so important that the Romans divided their day around it. In the middle of the day, at the 6th hour around noon, everything stopped for the meridiatio, the midday rest. The entire city shifted into slow motion under the shelter of the heat. This habit taught the body that sleep and rest are a natural and integral part of life, not a luxury. The calm Mediterranean. The Romans called the Mediterranean Mare Nostrum, our sea. On summer nights, merchant ships would sail slowly in the quiet waters, navigating only by the stars. The silence of the sea, the rustle of the sails, and the steady movement of the waves created a natural rhythm that accompanied the entire empire, a rhythmic breathing of water surrounding the land in its sleep. The little guardians of the threshold. Every Roman family had Laras and Penates, small statues of protective gods placed in a small home shrine near the entrance or the hearth. When a Roman went to sleep, they knew these familiar little figures were awake, guarding the home, the food, and the family unit. Knowing someone was watching over the threshold allowed them to sleep in total security. The pause of time. In ancient Rome, time was measured primarily by sundials. The philosophical and soothing implication of this is that the moment the sun set, time stopped. There was no ticking clock, no passing minutes to chase after. The night was a timeless space where nothing was measured and nothing pressed. Just being. The heavy wool blanket. The Romans highly valued quality wool. In winter, they slept under thick, heavy wool blankets, a bit like today's weighted blankets. The sensation of physical, soft, natural weight wrapping the body provided a sense of protection and embrace, and helped the body physically relax from muscle tension. The secret of sleepy lettuce. It sounds strange, but the Romans believed lettuce was a food that induced drowsiness due to a milky substance in the stem. Unlike today, where we eat salad as a starter, many fathers in Rome used to eat seasoned lettuce leaves at the end of the meal, specifically to prepare the body for a calm and undisturbed sleep. The eternal garden in the bedroom. In the bedrooms, cubiculum, of wealthy Romans, walls were often decorated with frescoes of blooming gardens, fruit-laden trees, and birds. The goal was to create an illusion that you were sleeping in nature. Even in the middle of winter or the heart of the city, eyes would close facing an eternal, serene green that never withered. The sweet wine of the night before bed. Some Romans would drink a small cup of mulsum, wine mixed with honey and slightly heated. The warmth of the drink, combined with the sweetness of the honey, spread through the body like an internal hug, relaxing the muscles and inducing a pleasant heaviness in the eyes. The fire that never went out in the Temple of Vesta in the Roman Forum burned the eternal flame. The Vestal virgins watched over it day and night so it would never extinguish. The thought that somewhere in the heart of the city, there was one warm, steady, and eternal flame burning for everyone gave people a sense of continuity and security, even when their private world was dark. The emperor's diary. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, used to write his thoughts, meditations, at night, in his tent, sometimes under starlight during military campaigns. His writing was an exercise in stoic calm, accepting what cannot be changed, releasing the day's anger, and going to sleep with a clean and reconciled soul. His words still soothe millions of people before bed today. Fields of poppies. The flower most identified with sleep in Rome was the poppy, whose seeds were used for medicine and relaxation. The Romans likened the night to an endless field of red poppies moving in the wind, a mesmerizing visual image of gentle, quiet movement inviting a person to lie down within that softness and close their eyes. The first whisper. The English word lullaby is likely related to the Roman sound lala, the syllable that Roman nurses and mothers hummed to babies to put them to sleep. It is a universal sound, crossing times and empires. When you lie in bed, imagine hearing that same ancient, human hum that has passed from generation to generation for thousands of years, meant solely to bring peace. Reign in the center of the house. In the center of the Roman home, the atrium, there was an opening in the ceiling called the compluvium, and beneath it, a shallow pool called the impluvium. On rainy nights, one didn't hear rain hitting a window, but rather heard drops falling straight into the water in the heart of the house. Imagine the hypnotic sound of water meeting water, a gentle and rhythmic echo filling the entire space with liquid serenity. Pliny's Room of Silence. Pliny the Younger, a famous Roman writer, designed a special bedroom in his villa built inside a double wall. He called it the Chamber of Silence. He wrote that in this room, one could not hear the noise of servants, the wind, or the stormy sea. It was a place of total disconnection, an architectural bubble designed for one sole purpose: deep and undisturbed sleep. The swing of the rich, wealthy Romans didn't walk. They were carried in a lectica, a kind of portable bed with curtains and pillows. The movement of the slaves carrying the litter created a gentle and monotonous rocking motion, like a baby's cradle. Many Romans testified that the best way to fall asleep was simply to ride to work, with curtains closed and the body cradled by the slow walking rhythm. The sacred line around the city of Rome was an invisible and sacred boundary line called the pomerium. The law forbade bringing weapons inside this line. When you crossed the line and entered the city, you were symbolically and practically in a demilitarized zone. Knowing you were sleeping inside a sacred compound where war was forbidden to enter provided a spiritual sense of protection. The chill of marble in the scorching Italian summer. Before the invention of air conditioning, Romans found comfort in architecture. Floors and columns were made of marble or cool stone. At night, these stones released the cold they had stored in the darkness of the earth. Imagine walking barefoot on a smooth, cool marble floor on a hot day, a sensation that immediately cools the body and lowers the pulse. Virgil's buzzing bees. The national poet Virgil wrote an entire work, the Georgics, dedicated to country life, lovingly describing the life of bees. Many Romans saw beehives as a symbol of nature's order and harmony. The sound of a distant beehive on a summer day, a low and continuous hum that never stops, was considered the perfect background noise for dozing off in the shade of an olive tree. The star Vesper. The Romans didn't have digital clocks shouting at them to go to sleep. Their sign for the end of the workday was the appearance of Vesper, the evening star, the planet Venus. When this glowing dot appeared in the fading western sky, it was the universal signal to put down tools, release the oxen from the plow, and go home. The celestial signal for rest. Library of Silence. Public libraries in Rome were temples of knowledge, but also of silence. The walls were very thick to insulate against noise, and light entered only from high windows. The smell in these rooms was a mix of cedar wood, used to protect scrolls and wax. Entering there was like entering a protected cave, where words are silent and thoughts calm down. The rhythm of the mosaic. Imagine the Roman artist creating a mosaic floor. It is incredibly slow work. One small stone, tessera, after another, thousands of times, row after row. There is something meditative and soothing in the thought of this process. Perfect order created out of chaos, stone by stone, in absolute silence, until a complete and stable image is formed that lasts forever. The end of the world on Roman maps. At the edges of the known world, everything became blurry. They didn't know what lay beyond the ocean. Instead of being scary, there is something soothing about it. The world was a mysterious place, not fully mapped, with plenty of room for imagination. Not everything was known, not everything was under control. Night is the time to release what we know and quiet down into the pleasant fog of the unknown. The breathing fabric we are used to clothes with tight elastic, buttons, and zippers. The Romans slept and lived in natural linen or wool garments, with cuts that were completely loose and relaxed. The tunic simply rested on the body, applying no pressure to the skin. The sensation of natural fabric, breathing together with the skin and allowing blood to flow freely, is a reminder to release any physical tension before sleep. The keystone. The Romans were the masters of the arch. The secret of the arch is the top keystone. It holds all the weight without any glue or cement, using only gravity and balance. There is something philosophically soothing about this. No force or effort is needed for things to hold together. You can simply lean back, trust the natural balance of things, and let gravity do its work while you rest. The quiet water clock at night. When sundials didn't work, the Romans used a clepsydra, a water clock. It is a clay vessel with a tiny hole at the bottom, from which water drips slowly into another vessel. Time doesn't run or tick. It simply flows, drop after drop, in a steady and liquid rhythm. Time becomes something soft that passes on its own, without urgency. Liquid gold olive oil was not just for food, but the secret of grooming and relaxation in the ancient world. After the baths, the body would be anointed with high-quality olive oil. The act of massaging the warm oil into the skin, the softening of the muscles, and the gentle sheen that remained created a pleasant protective layer between the person and the outside world. An envelope of softness. The straight-road home Roman roads, like the Via Appia, were built in incredibly straight lines stretching to the horizon. The black basalt stones were polished and fitted together precisely. There is comfort in the thought of a straight, stable, and safe road that leads you to your destination without sharp turns or surprises. The path is paved, the route is known. You can simply walk or sleep with the confidence that you will arrive. Queen Luna, while Apollo, the sun god, was loud and drove a blazing chariot of fire, Luna, the moon goddess, was described as driving a silver, quiet chariot drawn by oxen, slow and calm animals, or white horses. She sails through the sky in silence, spreading a silver veil over the world and bringing with her the morning dew. Her shift is a shift of silence. The perfect slope. The aqueducts worked solely on gravity. The Romans calculated a tiny, precise slope that lasted for dozens of kilometers. The water simply glided down without pumps and without engines. The water never struggled uphill, but always flowed with the direction of nature, calmly at a steady pace, all the way from the mountains to the city. A sweet surrender to gravity. Spray of saffron in crowded Roman theaters on hot summer days. There was a hidden system of pipes that sprayed a fine mist, sparsages, of water mixed with saffron or wine over the audience. Imagine a thin cloud of cool, fragrant mist descending upon you from above, cooling your face and settling the dust and heat. A moment of freshness in the middle of a scorching day. Stoic wisdom. Rome's Stoic philosophers, like Seneca, taught that our suffering stems not from events themselves, but from our thoughts about them. Their soothing sentence for the night was the realization that what happened today is over and what will happen tomorrow is not currently in our control. Sleep is the ultimate practice of Stoicism. Letting go of the reins, closing your eyes, and accepting the rest. The vanishing colors in ancient Rome, as in the entire world before electricity, Colors vanished with the sunset. The world was not lit by artificial light that preserved colorfulness. When the sun went down, red turned to gray, green turned to black. The world became monochromatic, visually simpler. The eyes didn't need to process stimuli. Everything blended into the soft shadows, becoming one. The slippers of the ancient world, we think of Romans in tough leather sandals and army boots, caliga. But at home? Oh, at home it was a different story. Inside, they wore sockets, soft slippers made of wool, felt, or very delicate leather. That moment, when a Roman arrived home, took off the day's hard sandal, and slipped their foot into something soft and warm, is the moment the body understands. I have reached my fortress. I can rest. The milky light of windows before clear glass became common. The wealthy used a mineral called lapis specularis, a type of transparent gypsum, for their windows. Unlike modern glass, this stone wasn't entirely clear but milky. It filtered the moonlight, turning it into a soft, diffused, and dim glow. The room would fill with a milky light that didn't dazzle the eyes but induced a daydream atmosphere. The bread of morning bakeries in Rome worked mainly at night, so the bread would be fresh at sunrise. If you were awake at night in Rome, you would smell the delicate, sweet scent of dough baking in brick ovens in the air. It is one of the most comforting smells in the world, a scent promising that there will be food tomorrow, that the world continues to nourish you even while you sleep. The wings of sleep in Roman art, the god Somnus, sleep, was often depicted as a beautiful young boy with delicate wings on his feet or head. He doesn't fall on you heavily, but hovers over you quietly. He held a horn in his hand from which he dripped drops of water from the river of forgetfulness. Imagine sleep not as a black curtain coming down, but as a gentle beating of wings clearing your thoughts. The clean scent of lavender, the word lavender, comes from the Latin word lavare, to wash. The Romans loved to place dried lavender flowers between their cotton and linen clothes in closets. When they got into bed, the sheets released a gentle, clean, and soothing scent of purple fields. This smell is a biological signal for the body to relax, breathe deep, and let go. The lighthouse of Ostia at the port of Rome, Ostia, stood a huge lighthouse that burned all night. For sailors in the dark sea, this fixed point on the horizon was the promise of a safe shore. Even when you are in bed, the thought that there are lighthouses in life, stable, permanent things that don't move even in the dark, allows the ship of your consciousness to drop anchor and rest. The quiet fish ponds. Wealthy Romans loved raising ornamental fish in private pools, piscina. Sometimes these were fish swimming slowly in clear water. Watching the slow, mute, hovering movement of the fish in the water, without any sound, was a type of ancient meditation. Movement without effort, a quiet and simple existence. The shadow of the sundials were everywhere in Rome, but at night they became meaningless. The pointer, gnomon, stopped casting a shadow. This is a beautiful symbol for the night. Without sunlight, there is no measurement, no judgment, no early or late. The shadow disappears, and time becomes an open, boundless space of rest. The sound of the distant flute shepherds in the mountains around Rome used to play a simple flute, tibia, to calm the herd. On quiet nights, the low, airy sounds would be carried by the wind, reaching the outskirts of the city. A simple, repetitive melody meant solely to tell the world, everything is fine, the flock is asleep, there are no wolves, you can close your eyes. The milestones the Romans placed milestones along roads to know how far they had progressed. But at the end of the day, when arriving home, the journey is over. No need to count kilometers anymore. In your bed, you are exactly where you need to be. You have reached the destination. The numbers are erased. The distances reset. You are here, and that is enough. Unleashing the toga, the Roman toga was a very heavy garment, made of long meters of wool wrapped around the body in a cumbersome way that required an upright posture. The sweetest moment of a Roman's day was the moment he returned home and removed the toga. The heavy weight dropped from the shoulders, the body was released from the pressing folds. When you get into bed now, imagine you are shedding today's toga, the roles, the responsibilities, and the masks. Simply drop the weight and be light. Temples of the nymphs, nymphaeum, scattered throughout Rome were structures called nymphaeum, cool artificial caves dedicated to water nymphs. The water there didn't burst in strong jets but trickled gently onto moss-covered rocks and ferns. The air inside was always humid, cool, and fragrant. It was a place of hiding and quiet in the heart of the city. Imagine entering such a cave. The noise outside disappears, and only the hypnotic sound of trickling water remains. The personal genius. The Romans believed that every person, from the moment of birth, had a spiritual entity attached to them called a genius. This wasn't a scary ghost, but a kind of personal guardian angel that accompanied you everywhere, knew you best, and watched over you when you were weak or sleeping. The knowledge that you are never truly alone in the dark, that there is something quiet and good watching over you, is a very comforting thought. Cypresses in the night watch. The cypress tree was sacred to the Romans and symbolized eternity and silence. The tall, narrow Italian cypresses stood erect in cemeteries and gardens, barely moving in the wind, like a finger signaling for silence. Chhh. Their dark, stable silhouettes against the deep blue night sky are a symbol of static calm. Nothing moves, everything stands in place. The Roman peace, Pax Romana. There was a period of almost 200 years called the Pax Romana. Although there were wars on the fringes, unprecedented relative quiet prevailed in the heart of the empire. A merchant could walk from Syria to England on safe roads. This feeling that the world is stable, that swords are in their sheaths, and that one can travel safely, is the feeling we seek in sleep. A ceasefire with the world. Everything is quiet, everything is safe. The last string at quiet evening banquets, the common instrument was not a loud drum, but the lyre, a small harp. Its sounds were delicate, plucking the strings with fingers. The music was not meant to make people dance, but to soothe digestion and the soul. Imagine a distant, muffled plucking of a harp, one sound at a time, dispersing in the air and slowly fading into silence. Rolling the scroll we are used to, closing a book, or turning off a screen. The Romans were rolling a scroll, volumen. There is something very final and soothing in this movement. You roll the paper slowly, covering what you read, hiding the words, and sealing the knowledge inside a protected cylinder until tomorrow. What is written is written. What you read is read. Now roll, close, and put aside. The god Janus was the god of beginnings and endings, of doors and passageways. He had two faces, one looking back to the past, and one forward, to the future. But his special moment is the moment in the middle, the threshold. Sleep is this threshold. We stand at the door, closing it on the day that passed, and not yet opening the door of tomorrow. We are in the protected space in between. Golden honey, the Romans didn't use white sugar, but honey mel, to sweeten their lives. They saw honey as a gift from the gods, an essence of sunlight trapped in a thick, slow liquid. Before sleep, the thought of something sweet, thick, and golden flowing slowly is a great image for sleep itself. Something rich and nourishing that envelopes the consciousness in slow sweetness. The flowing Tiber, the Tiber River crossed Rome. During the day it was busy with boats and trade, but at night it turned into a black, shiny strip reflecting the moon. The river saw everything, the emperors, the wars, the loves, and simply continued flowing to the sea. The water doesn't stop to ask questions. It just flows. Be like the river. Let thoughts pass over you. Don't hold on to them. Let them flow on to the great sea. The intentionally small room, cubiculum, unlike our modern homes with huge bedrooms, the Romans preferred their cubiculum to be very small, sometimes almost windowless. This wasn't a lack of space, but a design choice. The bedroom was meant to be a dark, intimate, and enveloping den. A place where the walls are close to you to preserve body heat, and the darkness is absolute. Like entering a padded jewelry box and closing the lid. The sunstone, amber, the Romans admired amber, succinum, that came from the Baltic Sea. They loved holding lumps of raw amber in their hand or in bed. Why? Because unlike cold gemstones like diamond or marble, amber feels warm to the touch. When it warms up in the palm, it releases a very delicate scent of ancient pine trees, since it is fossilized resin. It was like holding a small, solid piece of warm, fragrant sunshine in the cold night. Morpheus, the dream shaper Somnus, the god of sleep, had a son named Morpheus, hence the word morphine. His special role was to shape forms in dreams. The Romans believed he was the one who wears human figures in our dreams and brings us familiar and beloved faces. The thought that there is a celestial artist sitting and gently sculpting the dream for you, making sure the shapes are soft and pleasant, is an invitation to relax and see what he has prepared for tonight. The hidden corridor, cryptoporticus, in large Roman villas. They built semi-underground corridors called cryptoporticus. They had narrow windows at the top that let in a little light and air, but they were always cool, shady, and very quiet, protected from the scorching sun and outside noise. Imagine walking in such a long corridor, the coolness of the earth enveloping you, and your steps echoing in absolute silence. A tunnel of calm. The painted skies, since they couldn't see the stars from the room, many Romans painted their ceilings deep blue, cerulean, and decorated them with gold stars. This was a way to bring infinity inside. When you lay in bed and looked up, you didn't see a closing ceiling, but an illusion of open, eternal skies watching over you from above, cloudless and stormless. The rhythm of the spindle in almost every Roman home, women spun while using a spindle. The movement was monotonous and constant. Spinning the spindle, pulling the wool, spinning and pulling. The quiet sound of the turning wood and the repetitive rhythm created a kind of ancient, domestic white noise. It is a rhythm of slow and quiet creation, a thread lengthening slowly, a symbol of patience and time passing leisurely. The wax seal at the end of the day. When a Roman finished writing a letter or closing a document, he dripped hot wax and impressed his signet ring into it. This action, the sealing, is an act of closure. That's it, it's over, it's signed. Cannot be changed anymore tonight. Sleep is the wax seal on the past day. What is done, and now it is kept and closed, and you can let it be. Ataraxia, this is a central concept in the Epicurean philosophy that was common in Rome. It means absence of trouble or total peace of mind. Their goal was not bursting happiness, but simply the state where the sea is smooth. No waves, no wind, no pain. Before sleep, don't look for great joy. Look for ataraxia, the balanced and quiet place where nothing rocks the boat. Standing water, cisterns. Beneath Roman cities were giant water reservoirs, like the cisterns in Istanbul, that stored rain and aqueduct water. Unlike a flowing river, the water there was standing, black, and completely silent, like a giant mirror in the dark. There is something deep and soothing in knowing that beneath the noise of the surface, deep down, there is a vast reserve of silence and water that isn't moving anywhere. The breath of the sea. Romans living near the coast knew that the sea was the greatest clock. The tides. The sea rises, the sea falls. Inhale, exhale. The whole world breathes in a slow rhythm of 12 hours. When you lie in bed, synchronize your breathing with these imaginary tides. It doesn't depend on you, it just happens. The world breathes and you breathe with it. Under the rose, sub rosa, the Romans used to paint roses on the ceilings of dining rooms or private meeting chambers. The phrase sub rosa, under the rose, symbolized secrecy. Whatever was said under the rose stayed there and was forbidden to be spoken outside. This is a wonderful thought for sleep. All the words, conversations, and thoughts of the day remain under the rose. There is no need to take them with you to bed. They are kept, sealed, and forgotten. The ritual of washing away the dust since they walked in sandals on dirt roads. The first custom upon entering the house or before sleep was washing the feet in cool water. It wasn't just cleaning, but a rite of passage. You washed the road off yourself. The dust of the outside, the many steps, the distances you traveled. Everything is washed away in the water, leaving the body clean and ready for rest. The separation between the road and the bed is absolute. The song of the cicadas on Italian summer nights. The soundtrack of the empire was not absolute silence, but the monotonous and endless chirping of cicadas in the pine trees. It is a sound with no beginning and no end, a carpet of natural rustle covering all other thoughts. This steady rhythm is like nature's pulse, reminding us that life continues at its own pace, even when we close our eyes. The great Roman keys were not small and digital, but made of bronze or iron, heavy and large, sometimes in the shape of a ring worn on the finger. The sound of turning such a key in a heavy wooden lock was a definitive sound, a deep, metallic click. When the door locks at night with such a key, you know the world remains outside. Your fortress is closed. The full amphory in the basements of houses stood rows of giant jars, amphory, full of olive oil, wine, and wheat. The knowledge that there is a full pantry under the house, that there is enough food and abundance for winter, gave a deep sense of security on a survival level. The body can let go of the tension of what will happen tomorrow, because the jars are full. Everything is ready. Everything is fine. The warmth of the stone Rome is built of stone, travertine, marble, tuff. These stones have a wonderful physical property. They store heat. After a day of sun, the walls of houses and benches continue to emit a gentle and pleasant heat into the cool night. The city itself is like a giant, hot water bottle, wrapping its residents in warmth that remains hours after the sun has set. The closed pine cone. The pine cone was an ancient Roman symbol of life and eternity. You can see giant statues of pine cones in Rome to this day. Pine cones react to humidity and darkness by closing their scales to protect the seeds inside. At night, nature closes. Just like the pine cone curling into itself and guarding its core, so do we curl up, close our eyes, and keep ourselves safe until morning. The unchanging stars. The Romans looked at exactly the same stars we see, plus or minus slight astronomical shifts. They called them by the names we still use: Mars, Venus, Jupiter. There is tremendous comfort in the thought that millions of people, 2,000 years ago, laid their heads on the pillow, looked at the same Big Dipper, and felt the same shortness of breath and the same hope. The sky is a shared blanket for all of history. The parting word, veil, when Romans parted ways or went to sleep, they said, veil. The literal meaning of the word is not just buy, but be strong or be healthy, from the root valor. This is not a sad farewell, but a wish for strength and health. Sleep is our way of being veil for the next day, to gather strength, to heal, to get stronger. The eternal city, Roma Aeterna. The poet Tibullus was the first to call Rome the eternal city. The idea is that Rome is not just a physical place, but an idea that cannot die. Even when the empire fell, Rome remained. The last thought before sleep is about eternity. There are things bigger than us that survive every storm and every dark night. History is long, time is infinite, and we are part of it. Temples of sleep, incubation, in Rome, and on Tiber Island in particular. There were temples to the god of medicine, Asclepius, where a ritual called incubation, sacred sleep, was performed. People went there not to pray standing up, but simply to sleep inside the temple. They believed that during sleep, the god would come to them in a dream to heal them or offer advice. The thought that sleep itself is the medicine, and that dreaming is an act of healing, is a comforting thought to take to bed. The feathers of the rich while soldiers slept on straw and common citizens on wool. Wealthy Romans discovered the ultimate secret of softness. Goose down. The historian Pliny recounts that Roman soldiers in Germany would send soft white goose feathers back to Rome. The transition from a prickly straw sack to a cloud pillow of feathers is the moment humanity realized: sleep deserves the most pampering treatment there is. The goddess Securitas. The Romans had a goddess who represented security and stability, Securitas. Unlike other gods who stood with spears, she was always depicted sitting comfortably, legs crossed, and often resting her head on her hand in a posture of total rest or napping. She is the allegory that when the situation is safe, you can close your eyes. Security is not alertness, but the ability to rest your head. The stone population Rome was filled with thousands of marble and bronze statues. At night, when living people went inside their homes, the streets didn't truly empty. The stone population, the silent emperors, gods, and heroes, remained standing outside. There is something poetic about this. Quiet, white, and stable figures guarding the city in eternal silence while fleeting life rests. The umbrella pines, one of the soothing symbols of the Roman skyline, to this day, is the stone pine or umbrella pine. Their tops look like a soft green cloud held up by a tall trunk. These trees provide shade during the day, but at night they create soft, round silhouettes against the backdrop of the stars. They don't pierce the sky like cypresses, but protect it like an open umbrella. Heavy curtains, velum, in Roman houses. There were no wooden doors inside the inner rooms, but very heavy curtains, velum, made of thick wool or multi-layered silk. These curtains swallowed every rustle and echo. Moving from room to room was quiet and soft, without the creaking of hinges or the slamming of doors. The house was wrapped in layers of fabric that silenced the world. The glowing marble the Emperor Augustus boasted. I found a city of brick and left a city of marble. White marble, from the Carrara quarries, behaves completely differently at night than ordinary stone. It reflects moonlight in a milky and glowing way, as if the stone itself is lit from within. An imaginary wander through nightly Rome is a walk inside a city glowing and pale, soothing white under the moon. The west wind, Favonius. The Romans gave names to the winds, and the most beloved of them was Favonius or Zephyr, the gentle west wind of spring. It was not a raging storm, but a light breeze bringing life and gently moving the leaves. When you feel a cool draft entering from the window at night, imagine it as Favonius, a good wind coming to caress your face and bring spring dreams. The climbing ivy, the ivy plant, Hetera, was a symbol of loyalty and eternal connection because it clings to walls and trees and never lets go. In Roman gardens, ivy covered entire walls in a thick green carpet. This is natural insulation from both noise and cold. The thought of a house wrapped on the outside in a living, green, and embracing layer of leaves gives a sense of protection and enclosure. The bonfires at the edge, at the far borders of the empire, legionnaires guarded the wall. The only thing lighting their night was the whispering embers of the bonfire. Staring at dying embers, the orange turning to gray, the heat kept inside, is one of the most sleep-inducing experiences in human history. The fire calms down, the flames subside, and only the pleasant heat remains. A click of release, the fibula, Roman clothing, was often held in place by a pin called a fibula, a sort of bronze or gold clasp that pinned the fabric at the shoulder. The most liberating sound of the day was the small click of opening this pin. The moment the fibula opened, the garment slid off the body, the shoulders were released from the tension, and the day officially ended. Imagine that small click now, a release of everything that is held tight. The island that is a ship in the middle of the Tiber River in Rome. There is a small island, Tiber Island. The Romans intentionally shaped it like a giant stone ship, with a built prow and stern, and a temple of medicine in the center. At night, when the river flowed around it in the darkness, the island looked like a ship sailing in place, safely anchored in the stream of time. It is a place of healing, floating on water but not moving, stable within the flow. The tepid room, tepidarium, in the bathhouses. There was a room called the tepidarium, the warm room. It wasn't hot and sweaty, nor was it freezing. It was exactly in the middle. Romans sat there for hours at a pleasant body temperature, just to be. Ideal sleep is like the tepidarium, the place where it is neither too hot nor too cold, the balanced and neutral place where the body feels most natural and relaxed. Roman chamomile. The Romans knew the chamomile plant well. They sometimes called it ground apple because of the distinct scent of the fresh flowers. Roman doctors recommended it for relaxation and headaches. Whole fields of small white flowers around Rome closed at night, and a delicate scent of herbal tea hung in the country air. Nature prepared its soothing brew for everyone. Removing the yoke, subjugum, at the end of a workday in the fields, the Roman farmer removed the yoke, jugum, from the oxen's necks. It was a physical moment of immense relief for the animal's neck muscles. This expression applies to us too. Sleep is the time to remove the yoke from the neck. The responsibilities, the worries, the tasks, take them all off and put them aside. The neck is free, the head is light. The statues of sleep Roman art loved to sculpt sleeping people. Famous statues like Sleeping Ariadne or the Sleeping Hermaphroditus depict figures looking so loose and relaxed in marble that it is almost contagious. The Romans saw sleep as a state of divine beauty, a moment worthy of being immortalized in stone forever. Sleep is not a waste of time. It is a work of art of the body. Finger on the lips, Harpocrates. The Romans adopted the god Harpocrates as the god of silence and secrets. He was always depicted as a child pressing his index finger to his lips in a gesture. Small statues of him were placed in private rooms. This is an ancient reminder. The smartest thing to do at the end of the day is to be silent. Stop talking. Stop explaining. Simply place an imaginary finger on your lips and listen to the quiet. The thick walls, opus cementitium, Roman concrete and bricks created walls of immense thickness, sometimes a meter or more. The acoustic meaning of this is absolute isolation. When you are inside an ancient, closed Roman structure, the world outside simply does not exist. The thick walls are like strong arms hugging the inner space and guarding it against any external noise. You are protected inside the fortress. The unending Roman oil lamps had a small reservoir. To keep the light burning all night, it had to be refilled. Wealthy homes had lamps with huge reservoirs or automatic feeding mechanisms, ensuring the small, comforting light wouldn't go out until morning. The knowledge that there is enough fuel to last the night, that there is no need to get up and check, is the basis for continuous sleep. The navigating stars, Stella Maris, for Roman ships in the Mediterranean, the stars were the only map. Sailors trusted them with their eyes closed, literally and metaphorically. They knew the stars were there on a fixed path, and that they would lead them home even in total darkness. We too can navigate to sleep out of trust, trusting our body and the night to take us to a safe shore in the morning, without us having to do a thing.